There's only so much Sean Payton can do. I think it's going to be a tall order.
I think Jesus could only save them from that turf.
This one is going to decide everything again.
I think you should try and flog him Rashawn Gary.
Can we maybe grab Malik Willis and make him QB1?
Welcome back to the Early Hours podcast. 4 possible Super Bowl matchups are on the cards this weekend, which also means 4 possible head coaching clashes. Guys, we could see the battles between Sean versus Sean, Mike versus Mike, Sean versus Mike, and Mike versus Sean. This is the kind of top tier journalism you come for when it comes to the Early Hours podcast. Let's dive straight into the games. Patriots at the Broncos. Easy streak continues here for New England as they are up against a Denver side with a quarterback who hasn't thrown a single pass all season.
It's not unfamiliar for him, but it's definitely uncomfortable. He is going to be in a world of sort of new experiences within this offense, and as much as he knows that playbook, my God, is it going to be a tall order in the AFC Championship round against a Patriots team who historically do very, very, very well in this round, let alone the next round. For me, it's going to come down to, can he just get the intermediate routes going? Can he get the quick reads? Can they look to be using the screens? They're going to have to scheme that way. And if you trust anyone to do that, it is Sean Payton, because he likes a mobile tight end. He's less about chipping. He's less about the sort of blocking elements. He's more about just getting someone into the receiving game, the likes of Evan Engram and so on. But yeah, it's going to be tough, isn't it? It's going to be really tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's attack versus defence, isn't it? The Patriots' second highest points per game. The Broncos only the 14th, but we've spoke all year about the Broncos' defence, and that's still very much intact. So I think it all still depends on what it would have done anyway. Obviously, it's just advantage to New England. I think the Broncos can put the game in other guys' hands, but it certainly swings it towards the Patriots, whereas before you'd probably just edge towards the Broncos.
It's a case of, for me, can Denver protect the ball? That's huge. If he starts fumbling it and he starts getting in his head, and you start looking around trying to force plays and make plays, which, to be fair, is what they did to Allen last week on the flip side of things. But they're going to come up against it from a very, very good Patriots defense. Like we said last week, they pressured CJ Stroud 44% of the time on dropbacks. They were forcing interceptions, fumbles, and yeah, I worry about him if he starts getting looks from disguised coverages and things like that. There's only so much Sean Payton can do. I think it's going to be a tall order, like I say, but we'll see.
Yeah, Sean Payton and the Broncos, they're not choosing to dabble in the free agent market. So it is Jarrett Stidham who will be leading the charge. He is the first NFL quarterback to start in the conference championship round or later after, like you say, not throwing a single pass for the entire season. That's since records began in 1950. So yeah, the Broncos, a tough task here, but maybe they're a bit well rested and they're playing at home. My question here is this more ammunition for the Patriots just having consistently easy runs to the Super Bowl if they get there?
It doesn't really matter about the schedule. They've actually performed really well in the playoffs, and playoff, it's a fresh start. Everyone goes 0-0 in the playoffs, so they've done really well. I think, yes, is it favourable that they're coming up against a backup QB who, like you said, has not played a snap pre this point? Obviously, Gonzalez is in a prime position as one of the best corners in the league to be able to shut down his first read and put Stidham under immediate pressure. They've got a great pass rush. Mike Vrabel's put these guys in this position, though, and Drake Maye isn't just coincidentally an MVP candidate. He has made plays. He's made big plays. He's got one of the best deep balls in the league. From a receiving standpoint, they brought in a veteran like Stephon Diggs, and he's performed. For me, that it's fair game that they're there. It really is.
Okay, and we go from one MVP candidate to another in Matt Stafford. We've got the Rams at the Seahawks. I'm not sure playoff football really gets any better than this. Divisional rivals, both teams taking one apiece in the regular season. Those games were separated by just 1 and 2 points as well. For me, this one is a little bit too close to call.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say these have been the first and second best teams in the league all year, to be honest. I mean, points per game, Rams first, Seahawks third. You look at defensive sacks, 47 each. They are so similar with a lot of their stats. And like you say, Matt Stafford has probably been the real catalyst for the Rams. I think not quite a catalyst, but Sam Darnold has certainly enabled the Seahawks with obviously Smith and Jigba. And, Walker's had a great season as well. Obviously, the Rams have got Williams, Puka, Nacua, obviously Devontae Adams. Both teams stacked. I think the difference is going to be possibly the Seahawks defense. I think both teams going forward are not quite unstoppable, but, pretty much immovable objects of the league. I think the Rams defense is a little bit suspect at times, whereas I think we've seen, in the last couple of weeks, the Seahawks have really worked it out on defense. And if they can shut down the Rams, which if anyone can, I think the Seahawks can. I don't think the Rams will shut down Smith and Jigba. I don't think they'll shut down Kenneth Walker. I think it could actually be the unsung hero of the Seahawks defense that gets them over the line this weekend.
Yeah, and you spoke about sort of points per game, elite versus elite. The Rams offense, 30.3 points per game. So they are first, like you said. But then on the flip side of that, not only do the Seahawks rank as third, fourth in the league, give or take on the week, the defense is first. So they're averaging 17.2. And this is in the same league, in the same playoff run as the Texans. So they're absolutely balling out. 17.2 points per game from a defense is incredible. I think, like you, ultimately, it comes down to the Seattle Seahawks defense, but I'm going to focus on the other side of the ball and who they're going to have to mark, and that's, of course, Davante Adams and Puka Nacua. And I say Davante Adams first in that order. I know Puka's the X, but for me, this is really, they've both been efficient in the red zone, these two teams, and ultimately something's going to have to break, something's going to have to crack. We saw it in the first two meetings, and it was favourable for the Seahawks with certain penalties and the way they came back late in the game. But Davante Adams is going to really need to get back on the horse, bounce back from a sort of average performance last week, apart from the last catch, and then really start converting like he was in the regular season.
I mentioned at the start of this segment, it might be too close to call. Get a load of these. So their all-time head-to-head history against each other, the Seahawks lead that 29-28 against the Rams. Seattle has scored 1,223 points in those games. LA have scored 1,222. There's 1 point in it.
Yeah,
that is it's mental. And then the other the question here is obviously the Rams have had another game in the playoffs. Are they going to be more experienced or too tired? The Seahawks are at home as well. The Rams haven't looked that good. They've nearly bottled it a few times in the playoffs. The Seahawks, they beat the 49ers after their first score.
I think the worrying thing for me is how much the Bears, who have struggled in man coverage, were able to shut down Puka Nacua last week. I don't know if either you caught on to this, but McVay was putting him back in sort of slot routes, which was not what we expect to see from Puka Nacua. But from a neutral standpoint, and we all are on this podcast now, we get to see Puka versus JSN, both sort of out-and-out slots at the heart of what they want to do, and they both obviously play outsides because of their coach's preference. I think it's going to be, can JSN get the yards after the catch, which he's so proven at doing? Can Puka be physical on those intermediate routes and shove off the DBs, which we know he's good at? I think, there's so much exciting play going on. You mentioned Kyron Williams, you mentioned Kenneth Walker. Both of these coaches have unbelievable offensive minds and defensive, schemes, and the coaching staff are just fantastic. So it far outweighs the game we spoke about at the start, at the top of the show. It really does. This is the blockbuster one. So you want to be getting tuned in at 11:30 GMT. It's going to be an unbelievable game.
Episode 36 of the Allowers podcast was titled "This Game Decides Everything." Two of the best teams in football face off Thursday Night Football, and now we get to see it again. The Seahawks came out on top for that one, but funny how that repeats itself, and they are still arguably, I think, the two best teams still in contention. So one to watch for sure. This one is going to decide everything again, and I think that's going to be the title of this podcast. We can round out the show though, guys, by talking about the coaching carousel. We broke the news last week with John Harbour to the Giants. More details have emerged there. It's $100 million over 5 years. Will that finally breathe success back into this Giants side, do you reckon?
It's certainly a lot of money for a man who has been to one team with possibly the most talented quarterback in the league and not won anything, I'm sorry to say. I don't think it's a bad appointment. I think putting all their eggs in one basket with that amount of money is a bit out there. I wouldn't be as excited as some of the Giants fans are. Don't get me wrong, can he probably bring on Jackson Dart with the experience he's got with Lamar? He's going from a very flawed Baltimore team, defensive-wise certainly, and not really having all the pieces offensively, to a New York team, which is still miles off. And again, it's going to be a project, so maybe that's exciting. He probably wants to be there for the next 5, 6, 10 years. So it could pay off, but I don't be expecting to see the Giants in the championship game in the next couple of years, I would say.
I'm going to Disagree entirely. I think they are an instant playoff contender in that division.
You said that earlier this year, to be fair.
I did, and I hold my hands up to that. And I think that's just because of the sheer quality of the squad. I think you partner that now with Harbour, God, just brings such a demand for excellence, and they will not allow complacency. It's crucial who he brings in as his OC and his DC and his coaching staff. I think Munkin, who he worked with for years at the Ravens, is tipped to, I think it's a second interview now, so it's very likely that he will make the move as well over from Baltimore, which will only add to my opinion that they become a playoff team. I think it's a division that they can capitalise in. The Eagles have had interviews for OCs, Mike McDaniels, Brian Dable. None of them wanted it. Not one of them wanted it because it's just not a sought-after job with Hurts under centre. I just think this is a real opportunity. If they get Malik Neighbours back, they've got all the pieces they need. I think he'll bring Abdul Carter into the fold. I think he can take Thibodeau to another level, which is saying a lot considering how great a season he's had. Yeah, I love it. I love the sign. I think it's great for New York, and the fans should absolutely be excited. And the final thing I'll say, listen, they've got a long tenured head coach, which they had the last time they won the Super Bowl, and they've got a quarterback out of Ole Miss. Let's see. Fingers crossed, Big Blue. Fingers crossed.
You've also got to contend with the absolute curse that is New York football and, of course, MetLife. So sometimes they're a bigger picture. I mean, I think Jesus could only save them from that turf.
You mentioned Mike McDaniels briefly there. He's off to the Chargers to become their offensive coordinator. Is this a bit of a shock considering, like you say, he was interviewing for head coaching positions?
It is a shock to me, yeah. It is a shock. I think it's a good move. I think him and Herbert with the Chargers and with Harbaugh again, I think that's brilliant. I think they're certainly a team to look out for, and we can talk in the off-season about potential moves with who's going to go there under him. Maybe, a new piece of weaponry would be that a wide receiver or a running back. However, what I would say is it is a shock, but what a coup. And I think it's good for him to go back for a year, and then he can come back into the coaching carousel this time next year and get a good gig again.
Yeah, the gigs out there available at head coaching positions, he's obviously looked at them, and there's probably, let's say he goes to the Raiders, who he interviewed for. If that goes badly, he then doesn't even have the chance to become an OC. In my opinion, it's probably over for him. If he ends up with the Titans, I could have seen him as an OC at the Titans. I don't think it's the right fit as a head coach. I think it's a good fit, and he's obviously, I'm sure, I know he wouldn't say this, but I'm sure that the weather will have had something to do with it, because he was interviewing for the likes of the Lions OC position. I know that reportedly came down to Dan Campbell not thinking it was an ideal culture fit. I think it's a good move for him, and I absolutely agree with what Matt said. We could see them bring in someone like Breece Hall. And, we've seen how effective Devon Achane was in a lackluster Miami side this season. Just keep an eye on who they bring in. And if they don't bring anyone in, expect Vidal to get a boost. Expect, Amarian Hampton to go on another level. He's looked at that. He will have considered that from last year's draft for sure.
So Mike's left Miami, but his grave wasn't empty for long. The now ex-Green Bay defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, he's now the Dolphins head coach. My question is, who's the first name do you reckon he's going to be bringing in?
First of all, what a sad day.
Yeah, it's a shock. It's sad. It's a shock.
We love Jeff. We love Hafley, and I'm sure we're about to come on, or at least discuss another defensive coordinator that another person on this call loves that may have departed. But hey, listen, it's a fantastic opportunity for him. He's obviously head coached in college, and I just want to see him do well. I think it's a good fit. I think he can really start to instill a different type of culture in Miami. They've obviously been under Mike McDaniels. It's been very chilled. I think, to answer your question, and we teased it on socials, I think he could look at, where he's at right now. I think he could say, what about that QB2 in Green Bay, Wisconsin? Can we maybe claw at him? Can we maybe grab Malik Willis and make him QB1? Couple of issues is Tua's contract, and check out our Instagram and our TikTok and our socials. We did give a full breakdown on why that's an issue from a contract standpoint.
You can still keep Tua on the books though, mate.
And I think you bring
Malik Willis in. But I think from a Green Bay standpoint, it's really alarming because Malik is a solid QB1, let alone a backup. We're very privileged to have that position, but his contract's up.
What do you think, Matt?
I think you should try and flog him Rashawn Gary. Why not?
That's really good. Yeah, he needs to go.
That's a great idea.
I've got a jersey if he wants it.
Do you know what? I don't think Gary's got that much trade value. I honestly could see it as releasing Gary. I know that sounds wild, I really do, but at the minute he's genuinely he ended the season behind Enikbari and LVN as defensive end 3 because of Parsons being out, 4 if Parsons is in the mix, and who's going to pay that contract? It'd have to be a restructure. I think we'll see him cut and we'll just lose the cap. I think we'd lose about, I think it's 18 million off the top of my head in cap, so it's not ideal, but we can't afford. But the year after contract's even worse. So listen, we can go down this rabbit hole in the off season, but for now, what a signing for Miami. I hope it works out for him. I really do.
We just have to catch Jeff in a tradie mood, I think. Rounding out the coaching carousel, Robert Saleh, he's departed the 49ers and is set to take the reins in Tennessee. Surely he can't do any worse than that 3-14 record this season, or do you think it's going to be a repeat of his tenure in New Jersey?
Firstly, this surprised me, actually. We had the day before he'd interviewed in Baltimore to be the head coach. We know he's been at a couple of the big teams. Obviously, then it came out that Buffalo are looking for a new head coach. And then next news, he's going to the Titans. Now, obviously, they've got their new quarterback in Cam Ward. They've got a bit of draft capital. They've got some cap space. So, again, for a long-term project, it must have been attractive for him. And if I'm honest, that was where I was hoping Mike McDaniels would have gone to be his OC. I don't think the New York, the Jets issue was him. I think we've seen that. I think, if anything, it got worse when he left. So I think he'll do a good job. I think it's a tough gig to have. Obviously, again, they're not going to be world beaters anytime soon. And generally, I'll be honest, I think OCs make better head coaches. However, he is a difference maker. He is a top, I'm going to say top 5, realistically the top 3 DC in the league, and he can make changes. And he will bring people in. You know, he took people to the Jets. He took people to the 49ers last year. You know, he has his disciples, and he will improve the team. Again, don't expect them to be a playoff team anytime soon, but it's a positive move for Tennessee.
If they don't act fast and get using some of the cap, they've got 100 mil in cap, so.
Yeah, and more picks you can count on your arm.
Correct. And exactly. Well, that's, the next point I was going to say is not only can they use that cap, they've got the they've got the 4th overall pick in the draft, and they've got higher picks in the later rounds, obviously due to the nature of the first round pick. So I think if they can get using that cap ASAP this offseason, the main priority is building that O-line and giving Cam Ward some protection so that he doesn't just have to. The playbook this year was very much, let's get Cam Ward using your legs and run for your life, son. But I think, if they can go and snag a Breece Hall, who he's worked with in New Jersey before, and it has a good relationship with him, all of a sudden you've got Cam Ward and Breece Hall as one of the best read option combos that you could ask for. If they can structure the O-line and they can go and get, I don't know, Brandon Ayuk, who knows? Do you know what? If he decides that he wants to why not take a punt on him?
I'd be bitterly disappointed in Salah. I think
a punt on him. I've seen a couple of reports on BA potentially linking up, because apparently when he was in the building for very brief periods, he's actually okay with Salah apparently. So who knows? If he moves across, all of a sudden you've got a WR1 that's probably not cost you much because his reputation's on his backside. You've got a Breece Hall who's desperate to prove himself, a new O-line, and the number 1 QB from the previous season. So in the draft, I should specify, not in the league. But yeah,
are you Breece Hall's agent? You're offering him everywhere.
Listen, he's going to be one of the most sought. I'd put him. He's probably at the top. Behind Rashawn Gary, obviously, he's probably the top free agent that you're going to want to go and acquire. Simple as that.
Love it. Well, look, that is it then. 4 teams will become 2 after this weekend. We'll be watching the games together as part of our annual Fantasy Awards evening this weekend. More to come on that in the off-season. Let us know who you've got to reach Super Bowl 60 in the comments, and we'll catch you when the dust settles.